It is our great privilege and pleasure to introduce Dr. Joseph Selvin, who is currently working as a professor and coordinator, Department of Microbiology, Pondicherry University, Pondicherry. And Dr. Selvin is having a huge credits both in academics and research career. And he has completed his MSc Environmental Biotechnology from MS University in the year 1996. Subsequently, completed PhD in pathology from CMFRI, that is Fisheries Research Institute, which considered Mananmuniam Sundaranaar University in the year 2002. And following that, Dr. Selvin has visited Singapore as a Nanyang Technological University as a ICMR International Fellow, such a reputed fellowship. And also he utilized ICMR International Fellowship to visit Ireland, Nanyang Technological University at Singapore. So this is with reference to his educational and postdoctoral fellowships. And subsequently, he has got senior research fellowship he has completed earlier, and he has joined as a lecturer in MCC, MS University from 2001 to 4, he said. And after that, he moved as a research officer in Bangalore in 2005. Then he joined as a assistant professor, Bharathidasan University in the year 2005 to 12. During that period, I was interacted with Professor Selvin. He was such a dynamic person. He's extensive research worker in his field, to say, right? Subsequently, he joined in Pondicherry University by invitation as associate professor. That shows his credentials. In the year 2012, he joined Pondicherry University and subsequently elevated as a professor of microbiology in Pondicherry University. To his credit, he has visited several countries, including Mexico, Ireland, Taiwan, and including several countries and other countries. And highly prestigious project he involved, there is the European Union Microbiome Support Horizon 2020 project, which involves 25 different countries. And Professor Selvin has received or completed 16 research projects supported by UGC, CSIR, MOES, DPT, DST, IFS Sweden, Global Microbiome Support Project by European Union. To the tune of financial support 7.3 crores. And Professor Selvin has awarded several honors and awards. The most important ones are Jawaharlal Nehru Award in the year 2003 by Indian Council of Agriculture Research, DST Young Scientist Award in the year 2004, INSA Young Scientist Medal 2006, INSA Professor LSS Kumar Memorial Award in the year 2006, UNESCO IOC TEMA Grant Award in the year 2006, DBT Young Investigator Project Award in the year 2008, and INSA Anil Kumar Bose Memorial Medal in the year 2009, to name a few. There are many more such awards with Professor Selvin. And so far, he has applied several patents and granted, and he has developed several technologies also. So far, he has completed 15 PhDs, and postdocs, 3 postdocs were completed under the guidance of Professor Selvin. And he has, to his credit, he has published more than 140 research journals in highly impacted journals, and contributed for several book chapters, etc. So with this brief introduction, I invite Professor Joseph Selvin to deliver a talk on towards synthetic life, creation of synthetic life and bioprospecting, an interesting connective subject from the basic foundational microbiology and the synthetic biology. Professor Joseph Selvin, please. Now you can handle the class for maybe a session for maybe another 1 hour, 15 minutes, and subsequently some 5-10 minutes for discussion. So thank you for agreeing to deliver the lecture, Selvin. I will get back to you at the end of session. Now you take the session, Joseph Selvin, please.
So outset, I thank Professor Balakrishnan, an eminent professor in Madurai Kamaraj University, for such a wonderful program. So, dear participants, you are hearing me? Any one of you say yes?
You can type in the chat box even. Yeah. They said yeah, okay. Yeah.
Okay. So the screen is visible.
Yes, visible. Yeah.
Okay. So we will be discussing about actually the today's lecture about today's synthetic life. Particularly, I'm focusing on design and creation of synthetic genomes and bioprospecting. So see, this is a new, I cannot say new field. Actually, this is about the advancement of synthetic biology. So I will be giving about the possibility of human genome editing and the possible development of microbial cell factories and its prospective applications in metagenomic bioprospecting. So that's the way my talk will go on. So I will take you around 1 hour and probably within another 1 hour, 10 minutes or 15 minutes about this field. So I know you have actually a very good talk from Professor Pavan. I don't know Professor Kartha Pandian or many team as per the I have seen. So you have a very good foundation about synthetic biology and many dimensions. Even I have seen one of our friends has delivered a talk on synthetic microbiome. Actually, we are closely working with microbiome with Professor Wilson Arunai. So you have a strong foundation, definitely, because of the previous talk happening up to till now. So now I will just share you about 1 minute. Yeah, see, we are hearing this word many times in many media and newspaper and many places about creation of super baby, and it is possible whether it is happening or not. Actually, this also I'll give you a brief insight at the after sometimes about whether a human editing is possible, whether it is happening or not. So, okay, first you should understand very clearly about genome. So I'm not going to speak anything about genome, but you should know that if you wanted to work in synthetic biology, or if you wanted to learn or do some research in synthetic biology, you should understand that the genomics and molecular biology are like two eyes of synthetic biology. Okay. So if you don't have a strong foundation in molecular biology, you have a single-eyed person in synthetic biology. And if you don't have anything knowledge of genomics, you cannot do anything in synthetic biology. Because you should understand a fact actually. The entire life in the earth or the life on the earth is made up of just simply 4 alphabet: adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine. Just this 4 alphabet is our playground. Okay. So we do everything with this alphabet. If you see what is a genome, if you see the human genome is made up of 3.6 approximately gigabase, where like computer science, we use the units like bytes, kilobytes, megabytes, gigabytes. The same way genomic science, we use the unit, base pair, kilo base pair, mega base pair, giga base pair. So such a 3.6 gigabase pair human genome is made up of nothing, simply repeated, haphazardly written adenine AGCT, adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine. So AGCT, if you write haphazardly, I will usually say that is our genome. That's all. So see, that is our playground. So if you have the knowledge of genomics and what is the if you are reorganize, redesign, see, that's the way. If you just read, you might have heard the definition of synthetic biology: design and creation of organism, or design and creation of pods. See, now if you read some of the literature or some of even the Wikipedia or anything in Google it, you will find redesign and creation. Synthetic biology is defined as redesign and creation. So we cannot design anything. We can redesign it. Okay, we can rewrite it. Via some of the publications I'm going to share you, they are using the word rewiring or rewriting. Okay, so this adenine, thymine, cytosine is actually some order it is written. So I usually say that whether our fates are written or not, really the fates are written. The fates are not written on our head. The fates are written on this genome. So that's the reason Greg Wender said, usually use the word my genome, my life. Okay. So a genome is our life. So the genome, if you see, the genome is arranged, this all AGCT is repeatedly written. If you rewrite or redesign or just I can say, reassemble it, the entire story finish. So you will get a new creation, new life, new look. Everything will change. Okay. So we should understand this genome fact first. Okay. So now I am coming to the next point, minimal genome. See, minimal genome is what? So I told you the human is made up of 3.6 approximately gigabase pair. So the 3.6 gigabase pair, our understanding that as of now, the publications clearly illustrate that around 97% plus or 97% is not required for the human survival. So the human is required, the human genome is containing 28,000 genes. Almost 19,500 genes are really laboratory scale demonstrated. These are real genes. So among the 28,000 genes, so we require 28,000 genes and the survival genes and fingerprint region. So what about this so-called the large proportion of the genome named as junk DNA? So the 97% of the genome is not required for our survival. Then can we design and create a human with only 3% of the genome already known in the human genome? So just 3% of the genome is sufficient for a human. Is it possible? So that's the way it was thought, and it was the works were started, and people were doing a good work, and people were there. There is already a life was created with minimal genome. So a minimal genome is an approach to estimate the smallest genetic element, the smallest number of genetic elements. Otherwise, we can say genes sufficient to build a modern type of free living cellular organism. Okay, that is otherwise simply I can say essential set of survival genes required for a life. Actually, this minimal genome concept is nowadays known only at bacterial level. It is not applied in higher organisms. So the bacteria, or the microbial cells, it was used for the creation of biofactories, otherwise called cell factories, for the synthesis of high-value chemicals and products. So the minimal genome is actually nowadays used as the building block of synthetic life. Okay. So what is actually for a design of a minimal genome or a creation of a minimal genome? What is required? What is prerequisite for the design of a minimal genome? Actually, we should have, as I explained you, we should have the knowledge of existing genomes. So genomic knowledge is very, very essential to create a synthetic genome or design a synthetic genome. The next, see, you should have better. You might have heard many talks. So we should have the knowledge of dry lab or comparative genome analysis tools, protein sequence similarities, and homology modeling. So we should have the knowledge of evolutionary feature of that genome. Otherwise, we cannot create or we cannot synthesize a real synthetic life. So we should have all these basic feature. If you see, I don't know whether you have somebody have explained about the history of the synthetic biology. If you see this publication appeared in 2005 from Craig Venter Institute, you see this word synthetic biology group. So before 2005, the Craig Venter lab is having synthetic biology group. Okay. So here Hamilton Smith, so he is the corresponding author, he is the Nobel laureate. So Hamilton Smith, he is publishing this paper. So he given the idea about this publication is the foundation of the concept of minimal genome. What is the foundation in it? You will see, 1 minute. Sorry. Yeah. Glass et al. PNAS. Actually, this publication actually appeared in 2005, but in print it is appeared in January 2006. So what is the information or significant findings available in this publication? Just to go through, the first information is it speaks about Mycoplasma genitalium. See, Mycoplasma genitalium or the mycoplasma is nowadays used as the host organism in genome engineering. So we know very well. So maybe some students are here. You should understand. I should just recall that the field of synthetic biology is evolving from genetics. Okay, genetics we know better. Genetics transforming into genetic engineering transforming into cloning, cloning and genetic engineering further transforming into genomics, and genomics further transforming into genome engineering. So genome engineering is otherwise called synthetic biology. Okay. So synthetic biology have other dimensions also, biosensors and other works, but the genome-based engineering only synthetic plays a major role in synthetic biology. Okay. So Mycoplasma genitalium has the smallest genome, that is the one of the significant feature, and it can be grown in exonic culture or pure culture. And might be those who are known with microbiology, you know this real name of Mycoplasma. That is usually we microbiology we use the word PPLOs, pneumonia-like organism. It is a potential pathogen already known for. So it can, what is the interesting feature is, it has minimal metabolism and very little genomic redundancy, and it can evolve with genome reduction. Very, very important point. The mycoplasma can evolve with genome reduction. So Hamilton Smith did the first experiment. They applied using the global transposon mutagenesis, a tool they applied. They simply identified or isolated 100 different genes are non-essential. 100 genes are non-essential. Then, so Mycoplasma genitalium is having 482 genes. So they identified 100 genes are non-essential. Then the work is continuing. If we design a genome that eliminating or that is not including these 100 genes, really non-essential, what will happen? So that's the way this idea was the idea was proposed and started. So and further 5 sets of disruptor genes they encode potentially redundant essential function. For example, phosphate transport. They find many genes involved in phosphate transport that are all redundant. Okay, now we'll see. Okay, this point I explained to you. So okay, or I can take a little further. Mycoplasma is otherwise called as belongs to the family molecules. So they are cell wall-like organism. Mycoplasma can evolve by massive genome reduction. These are obligate parasites, and this is the smallest genome of the free living organism known in the known among the life. Okay. And very important point is it have very lack of or the low level of genomic redundancy. Okay. See, this one I leave it. See, I told you 100 genes Hamilton Smith then team identified. The 100 genes are non-essential. Okay, very good. But they missed one point. If the 100 genes undergoes recombination, what will happen? As you know, by evolution, many genes are evolving through recombination. So this point is very, very important point, not yet answered. If some of you are really working, if you are very much interested in synthetic biology, you take some work and you can work on this non-essential gene, so-called non-essential gene, in a human genome or in a plant genome or an animal genome or anything or a microbial genome, what is its fate? Really, this genome, these non-essential genes in recombination is having some role in the survival of that organism or not, we need to identify. Okay, very good. So after 2005, this publication is appeared in 2008 in Science. So here you see very interesting fact. They designed, the synthetic genome is designed. We very carefully read the title, that's enough. Complete chemical synthesis. You understand me? Complete chemical synthesis. And the genome is completely chemical synthesized. You read the second word, assembly. So usually, those who know little genomics, you might know better. The genomics, we usually start with sequencing, assembly, annotation. Okay. So here, we already know the sequence. We already designed the genome. So based on that design, we are going for complete chemical synthesis. Okay, chemically synthesized, then we go for assembly. Okay, the genome is assembled the way we want, and it was cloned in Mycoplasma genitalium. Means, otherwise it is called simply the wild type of Mycoplasma genitalium genome was taken out and the synthetic genome is put in. So the life is called synthetic life. So that was created. Now you understand few more features about this design. See, the Mycoplasma genitalium, the first synthetic life is named as JCVI10, that is Giant Craig Venter Institute, the version 1. Now, 2016 and later part, we have the 3O, Giant Craig Venter Institute, the synthetic organism, the version 3O is available. So, you see, it contains all the functional copies of the gene, and except the MG408. The MG408 gene is responsible for the virulence. Okay, this is a potential pathogen. Okay, so the virulent gene MG408 was disrupted and replaced with another marker, means antibiotic marker. So they used this antibiotic marker as for selection of these transformed clones. Okay, two important peculiar features. So now we're going to see and going to just analyze the design of the genome, synthetic genome. Why we should analyze the synthetic genome? To understand two facts. When compared to a natural genome, what is unique in this synthetic genome? You might have a knowledge that from the talk I already explained. The synthetic genome is the genome evolved by genome reduction. Evolved by genome reduction. So this is do not have a non-essential gene, it have only essential genes. Very good. Then this is evolved by genome reduction, only it is having essential gene, that is a good one. What is the other unique feature of the synthetic genome when compared to the wild or natural genome exist? The unique feature is the one watermark. The watermarks not present in any of the natural genomes. It is present only in the synthetic genome, watermarks. The second one is called cassette DNA. That is called, here you can see, this is the ended design, okay? The second one is called synthetic DNA cassettes. So the synthetic DNA cassettes are very unique to the synthetic design. It is not present in the natural genome. Okay, first you see the design and I'll explain this unique, what for the watermark and what is the reason they kept the synthetic DNA cassette. See, the first level, they assembled watermark. And the second level, so you are keep in mind, those who are very basic in genomics or anything, you should keep in mind the 6 rows of different things I'm explaining you. All these 6 rows are nothing, simply oligonucleotides, okay? I'll speak in different names, different future, but all these things are oligonucleotide, okay? That is very important. So watermarks also oligonucleotide. So this also oligonucleotide sequence. And the level 1 and 2 is having transposomes. The transposomes which is identified in the year of 2006 and the transposomes which is identified in the year of 1999. And the next level, they kept synthetic DNA cassettes. You have to be very careful. These synthetic DNA cassettes and watermarks are unique to the synthetic genome. It is not exist in natural genomes. Okay. Okay. The next level, they kept protein coding genes. You know better how many protein coding genes are there. They kept it. And finally, structural RNAs. There is no doubt structural RNAs are always required for the survival of the organism. Now see, lot of literature and message and information explains that Venter made a lot of secret information in the watermark. So watermark of a synthetic genome can be used as even any secret information that can be coded for generations and for even, I cannot say what are the purposes. I cannot explain everything deliberately. So the watermarks is a coded secret information. What is coded there? Some examples. See, Greg Winter. Greg Winter is coded like this oligonucleotide code. This oligonucleotide sequence encodes for Greg Winter. This oligonucleotide sequence encodes for Winter Institute. And Hamilton Smith, and this sequence encodes for Hamilton Smith. So similarly, they kept many information in the watermark, which is not present in any of the natural genomes. This is one of the unique feature, and the second unique feature, 5 to 7 kb cassettes, DNA cassettes, oligonucleotide sequences. Why they kept these 5 to 7 oligonucleotide sequences, cassettes, you should understand first. See, the genes are arranged like lines, okay? Usually I say that if you, the genome is very similar to the actually, while we are just, the genome is very similar to the, when compared to English language. So see, the English having 26 alphabet, our genomic science is having 4 alphabet. So the English language, if you mix the alphabet, you will get words, and if you arrange the words, you will get line. If you arrange the lines, you will get paragraph. You arrange the paragraph, get pages. That's all. Very similarly in genomic science, the 4 alphabet, if you mix it, you will get 3 alphabet definite words called codons. If you arrange the codons, the words, if you arrange the codons, you will get lines. That is called protein. If you arrange that line, means the proteins, you will get one function, one paragraph, one metabolism. So that's the way, very similar. See, you will understand here the genes, for example, 100 genes are synthesized, and the order, how it is, assembly means how it is arranged, how it is assembled in a particular order. So here everything is done. But if you have a line, you have a line space, no? 100 lines are there, you cannot fuse the 100 lines together. Then you know what will happen. There is no meaning on it, no? Very similar fashion, these 100 genes are separated. So the cassettes are actually boundaries between the genes. So the space, the spacer between the genes are the cassettes. So DNA cassettes are inserted between the genes. So that's the way the synthetic genome was designed. Are you clear now? Okay, so this will speaks about another recent publication from PNA speaks about chemical synthesis and rewriting of a bacterial genome. Very important. There's this word you have to keep in mind, rewriting of a bacterial genome. So what the first or the second slide I showed you, the human genome. A human is made up of simply adenine, thymine, cytosine, guanine, AGCT. If you rewrite it, you can create a new life. Okay. So that will give us design flexibility, not only design flexibility, very, very important. You just understand this line, biological functionality. You will change the entire biological function of an organism if you rewrite the genome. Okay. So this is the latest version, synthetic genome 3.0 from the Greg Winter. Okay. Now I'll just I'll give few slides about basic, but I will not take much time here. I will not spend much time in it because I know better. Some of the talks you might already listen what is synthetic biology. Okay. I'm skipping much of the slides about synthetic biology. So this is about design and construction of and characterization of new biological systems. So the synthetic biology or a cell is in synthetic biology compared with a computer. Okay. So what they are saying, cytoplasm is the hardware that runs the operating system. The chromosome is the operating system. So just they are making analog or analogy with computer. Just like how computer function, a cell is functioning like a computer. So that's a way of approaching in synthetic biology. So very simply, very simple language, I can say that synthetic biology nothing. You have so many genes, you program it. If you want, what are the genes you want, you take it and you assemble it and put it in a cell. The cell is called factory, a cell factory. So the cell will synthesize what are the molecules you want, high value chemicals. Okay. So the next synthetic biology, very important thing you should understand is repressors. You might have heard much about it. Repressor means repressor oscillator, molecular switches. So many of the standard biological parts are based on the repressors. So represolator are engineered circuit designed to control the gene expression. Repressor means genes that turns off the gene expression. That also a oligonucleotide sequence, very important. Oscillator, another oligonucleotide sequence required for the gene expression. Okay, so repressolators. So we did some experiment actually in real laboratory conditions. See, we wanted to understand actually this repressolator, you can see QS repressolator. Usually I say QS. QS means quorum sensing repressolator. So quorum sensing repressolator, you can see that is the people are working with Lux gene, glowing gene, Lux gene. The Lux gene originally in Vibrio fischeri. Vibrio fischeri is nothing. You can see squid. Squid, you might have heard about squid. The squid in the sea, it glow in the night time or the dark time. The glowing is not due to the squid. The glowing is due to the some information. 1 minute. I received a message. What is that? 1 minute. I could not see the message. How to see that message? Send, okay, some other message, sorry. Send attendance link, please. Okay.
No botheration, sir. No botheration, please. Sorry.
Okay, no problem, no problem. Thank you, sir. Sorry, it's okay. 1 minute, please. Yeah. So actually, you can see the squid is glowing. Actually, it is not by the squid. Actually, it is by the associated symbiotic bacteria. The symbiotic bacteria carries a Lux gene. So nowadays, people are working. The Lux gene can be used as a repressolator, molecular switch. That is called QS repressolator, quorum sensing repressolator. This part we are doing some experiment also. This is one I am showing our one of our experiment. See, it is in a synthetic biofilm. We are aiming to create a synthetic biofilm. So the synthetic biofilm, we are aiming to use this bioluminescence as a repressolator. See, so the Lux gene we controlled with zinc, copper, mercury. See, when we are adding some sort of heavy metal, the expression was controlled. Some heavy metal, the expression was overexpression. So this is one of the example. If you wanted to work with the synthetic biology, you can do some. I'm speaking about this is a wet lab experiment. We do some dry lab, that is, there are many people are doing a lot of dry lab experiment, but synthetic biology only difficult side is wet lab experiment. So this is the Hindu starts writing about the importance of synthetic biology. So synthetic biology is an interdisciplinary nature. So this slides will speaks about how it is evolved from bioinformatics, bioinformatics to genomics, genomics to proteomics, proteomics to metabolomics, metabolomics to system biology to synthetic biology. Are you clear? So synthetic biology, they are giving the time 2005 to and till now 2020 and on. So that indicates that the biology is a recent emergence. So these slides will give you the central dogma of modern molecular biology. If we see, genomics to transcriptomics, proteomics, metabolomics, very importantly, you should understand this word, definitely fluxomics. Why fluxomics is interesting, very, very important, I will explain with some of the another few slides. I will be discussing about you the biofactory design. So biofactory design, that time I will explain you why fluxomics is very important. Fluxomics, just to keep the word fluxomics. See, and you might have heard much about standard biological faults, and that is online repository of standard biological faults and the creation of new metabolic pathway from the known metabolic pathway that is metabolite to metabolite. And applications of synthetic biology, I'm not taking much time, and some of the open softwares which is available, that is called GenoCAD, that is computer-aided design softwares. This is GenoCAD. This is very much useful in synthetic biology designs, particularly design of a synthetic genome, like design of plasmid, artificial network, synthetic genetic systems that is possible. And this is a web-based tool, even like point-click user interface. You do not require much knowledge in some computer language or anything, nothing. It's a web-based system. You can, even a beginner can work with it. This is about GenoCAD. So import of gene, enzyme, metabolites, and we can design it. And another one is called TinkerCell. That also a CAD for synthetic biology, means computer-aided design for synthetic biology. We can design any metabolic pathway by importing a known metabolic pathway. Okay, now we come to the second, designing of the biofactory, microbial cell factory. See, you should understand the chemical process are always proceeds with accumulation of impurities. So we need to develop a bioprocess with less impurity or no accumulation of impurities or the waste. Then it is called greener bioprocess. So the greener bioprocess was actually, the people are almost achieved by integrating this metabolic engineering and genome engineering. So if you apply these two things, metabolic and genome engineering principles, and then you design a cell using a synthetic genome, that is a microbial cell factory that is directed towards a particular product synthesis. So simply this concept is nothing. This is a cell. The cell is called cell factory. So we provide only carbon. So we provide only carbon as a source material. Carbon in the form of spade straw or any vegetable waste or anything. We provide only carbon, carbohydrates, and carbon as the source material. This cell should convert the entire carbon into what are the product I require, vitamins, enzymes, or anything. So the cell able to convert it to the value-added product, then it is called cell factory, microbial cell factory. See, this is actually environmentally benign. We can use renewable starting materials, and it is usually known as a greener bioprocess. See, there are many high-value chemicals, even butanol people are working on, jet fuel, and you see rubber. Rubber, we are producing rubber in many of the, in India, we are producing a lot of rubber plantations. So we can produce rubber in a bacterial cell, and even the fabrics, even the, what can I say, what we are fond of, the silk, that fiber, that fabric can be synthesized in a bacterial cell. Vitamins, therapeutic agents, pigments, amino acids, industrial enzymes, polyhydroxyalkanates, etc. So these are all the high-value chemicals can be synthesized in a bacterial cell, but not as of the existing knowledge, only possible through synthetic biology platform. So one of the design I'm going to explain you. So what is the limitation? Some of you working with bioprocess, better. Somebody speaking, Jodi. Okay. See, so if you optimize a process, we will get maybe one-fold or two-fold increase production, not much about it. But if you redesign a bacteria, that is synthetic biology platform, if you redesign it, we are redirecting the entire metabolism towards a particular product synthesis. So thereby, we can remove all unwanted product like storage product, space product, even defense system. So the entire metabolic pathway is directed towards a particular product synthesis can be possible only in synthetic biology. That is a biofactory design. See, metabolic, you should understand here very clearly. So this is a cell. We are providing as I told you, A is a carbon, maybe a carbohydrate source, a bed straw, or whatever maybe we are providing. So the gene 1 converts A into metabolic intermediate B. Gene 2 converts the metabolic intermediate B to C. Gene 3 converts metabolic intermediate C to D. D is the product, okay? But we require the product, another one, product E. So the product E synthesis in this bacterial cell is not possible because the bacteria do not have the enzymes required to convert the final product D to E. You understand me? So it has the sufficient metabolic pathway, but few metabolic pathways required to convert the intermediate product further D to E is not present in the bacterial cell, then we have to design, we have to delete first the gene 3, we have to insert another gene. So thereby you have a next intermediate. Previously we have a final product D. Instead of the final product D, now we are getting an intermediate product D2. So we are now introducing the another gene 4 in it. So the gene 4 is not at all present in this bacteria. So we are design and introduce it. So that will convert that D2 in the metabolic intermediate D2 into the product E. You understand me? For example, you have rubber. So I will be giving a real story about its success story about artemisinin, how it was produced in a bacterial cell. So this is the way the metabolic engineering is happening. This is about metabolic pathway for muconic acid production in Corynebacterium glutamicum. So the muconic acid production, some the pathway which is not present in the bacterial cell is introduced. Therefore, thereby we can convert the intermediate metabolism into muconic acid. Muconic acid, otherwise a bacteria cannot produce. See, sometimes this metabolic engineering is always a mishap, always a problem. One good example is this one. So here this design explains about Methylobacter estarquens, a design which is what happened with this design. So methanol is converted into polyhydroxyalkanates. Okay, you know polyhydroxyalkanate is a bioplastic. So if you have a technology to produce large scale bioplastics, you will be the billionaire nowadays. Yes, many countries wanted to replace the synthetic plastic with natural plastic. The problem is the economic and large scale production of polyhydroxyalkanates. So for that they did a metabolic engineering. Here the methanol is converted into metabolic intermediate formaldehyde. The formaldehyde is converted into polyhydroxyalkanate. Okay. So by the same time, one pathway leads to PHA, but by the same time, same intermediate is converted into another metabolic pathway that is called converted to carbon dioxide. So thereby, the entire metabolic pathway is not directed towards PHA. So therefore, what they did, they just deleted the alternate pathway that leading to carbon dioxide. So they deleted, very good. But that leads to the accumulation of substantial quantity of formaldehyde. You know better, if formaldehyde accumulated in a bacterial cell, what will happen? The bacterial cell will die. So that was a successful genome engineering, but the cell has died. So genome engineering always leads to ensure the flexomics. You remember the word flexomics, the flex value of the reactants and products. If the reactant products are not balanced, not in sufficient quantity, what will happen? The cell will die. Your design is good, your design is success, but the cell will not survive. Okay, so the metabolic networks are highly complicated. You know better. It is usually known as systems biology. It is applied mathematical models. So this is the one showing flex balance analysis. So if you don't have a proper flex balance analysis, a particular intermediary metabolic product accumulation leads to the death of the cell. So that also taken care in the synthetic biology designs. Okay, now I will be giving you another few slides about the synthesis and production of one of the product called artemisinin. So the artemisinin is an anti-malarial drug. It is a plant-derived molecule. So the artemisinin the discovery of artemisinin have awarded Nobel Prize in 2015. So the participants have to remember one word. See, the genetic engineering can lead to the synthesis of a protein, not organic molecule. So you never had a chance of expressing a multiple genes together and get a particular organic product, organic molecule, a terpenes, a alkaloids, a natural product is not possible in genetic engineering. But in genome engineering, it is possible. So this demonstration or this experimental proof will explain you how we can synthesize or how we can transfer a plant metabolic pathway into a bacterial cell. The bacterial cell become producing the plant metabolites, which is otherwise not possible in our knowledge. That is when genetic engineering, cloning, no, it is not possible. So this is artemisinin. This is the molecule originally synthesized by the Artemisinin annua, a Chinese plant. So the microbial production was proposed. See, here you see the sugar as the sugar, I told you, carbon source. Again, always carbon. Carbon is provided as the source, and the carbon should be converted into artemisinic acid or artemisinin. But what is the problem here is, see, up to acetyl-CoA, we all know that, no? Up to acetyl-CoA, it is possible. A cell can do up to acetyl-CoA. Okay, very good. Yes, we have all the life in the earth is having TCA cycle. Okay, up to TCA cycle is possible. So we have to now design our pathway leading from acetyl-CoA to our product, that is artemisinic acid. So what is missing? See, mevalonic acid pathway, FEP, farnesyl pyrophosphate, that pathway, amardipine pathway. So these three genes or three metabolic intermediates missing. You have seen the previous slides about how we have to introducing a new metabolic intermediary pathway. Okay, these pathways are missing. We have to introduce these three pathways. If you are able to design the three genes with the promoters or the molecular switches, and you can chemically synthesize it and successfully transfer it to a bacterial cell, or this is a yeast cell, Saccharomyces cerevisiae. So Saccharomyces cerevisiae start to synthesize the artemisinin, which never thought of in our human history. A plant product can be synthesized in a bacterial cell. It is possible. It was successful and demonstrated. See, okay, the next slides. See, this is originally in a plant cell what is happening. By photosynthesis, so the chloroplast leading, so from the chloroplast, the acetyl-CoA converted to farnesyl pyrophosphate, FEP, into amorphidine. Amorphidine is converted into artemisinic acid. So otherwise called artemisinin. So the same artemisinin synthesis is taken by in a bacterial cell. How it has happened? So this pathway which is missing, IPP, DMAPP, means alternatively is called dimethylallyl pyrophosphate, DMADP. So IPP is converted into DMAPP into farnesyl pyrophosphate, FEP. These three pathways we are missing in a bacterial cell. Are you getting me now? So that pathway is designed and provided with the promoter. So you might have heard about it, that standard biological parts from actually maybe I believe you might have heard from Pavandar talk. Pavandar usually speaks about standard biological parts. So the standard biological parts are promoter control switches. So we introduce the synthetic genes which is missing in the bacterial cells with promoter designs, and thereby we can control the secretion or control the expression of this newly introduced gene in the cell. Otherwise, what will happen? You might have heard about, but I told you fluxomics. The flux balance analysis will collapse, the cell will die. So our entire exercise will be spoiled. So that's why we have to be very careful while we are designing time. We have to provide the appropriate promoter switches, that is called standard biological parts. So we can create and we can provide this entire pathway in a bacterial cell. So the bacteria now start to synthesize artemisinin. So see, you have to think about reproducible promoter control. Reproducible promoter control. So that's the way now the synthetic biology made any molecule which exists in the natural system, any plant molecule can be secreted in a bacterial cell through metabolic engineering. Okay, but to this point also, any of the research students are here very much carefully follow this also. See, usually we are working with metagenomics. we usually create metagenomic libraries. So while we are creating the metagenomic library, we prefer high copy number plasmid. So to enhance the production, okay. But in the case of metabolic engineering or genome engineering, you go with low copy number plasmid. The reason is the highest accumulation of this plant product, like artemisinin, also toxic to the bacterial cell. You understand me, no? Okay. Sorry. Okay. Next one. Genome editing. I am sharing something about what is happened with human genome editing. Then I will take you to the application of synthetic biology in metagenomic bioprospecting. Okay, thereby I close the talk. See, this is about actually, okay, genome editing. This is about a story, very interesting story. You might have heard about it from the Google, Lulu Nana controversy. So this scientist named as He Jiankey. In 2018, at the end of 2018, almost this time, the entire scientific community is shocked. Because in a conference, he is declaring that he has the first successfully edited the two babies. The two twin babies has born with genome edited. How he edited? What he did? He edited CCRV, cytokine receptor protein, from these two babies while the baby, during the in vitro fertilization. These two babies' genome carrying the CCRV5 protein, chemokine receptor protein was deleted. So CCRV5 protein is not present in these two babies. What were the CCRV5 protein? These proteins are required for the HIV virus to recognize our white blood cells and get enter into the cell. If our white blood cells do not carry CCRV5 protein, the HIV infection, the HIV cannot infect. So a human not carrying the CCRV5 protein means naturally that human is resistant to HIV infection. Now you understand the story. So these two babies are born to a parent, the parent also a positive. A HIV positive parent, they expected to have their babies become HIV positive. So these scientists have interfered with the parents. He assured that, he told them, I have a technology, I am able to, there is this gene responsible for CCRV5 protein, thereby these two babies will grow, they will be HIV resistant babies. Very interesting. His idea is good. He successfully deleted, that is very, very important. He successfully deleted CCRV5 protein, then the controversy happens. What is controversy? He never took any ethical clearance. He never took any experimental evidence. He never had a publication in a science journal how he did the editing. You understand me? He explained this story in a conference. He never published in a peer-reviewed journal how the editing happened. One side. No ethical clearance. Second problem. And the third dimension is, many of the other literature says that CCRV5 protein is not only for HIV protection, it is required for many other functions of our body. So that's the reason. You see, while I'm starting this talk about the minimal genome, if you create a minimal genome while you are deleting many part of the other part of the genome, you feel it is not required to have a role in our life. So now the controversy is going on. These two babies are growing. The entire world is behind these two babies. What is going to happen? These two babies. So if you see the literature, you will find a number of publications about this scandal, but no publication about how this editing happened. CRISPR baby scandal. What is the next for human gene editing? Gene edited babies, what went wrong, what could be wrong. So that's why many publications about how He Jiankey can edit the baby. So that's the way he was fired from the lab and he was arrested. I think he is in jail now. I don't know what is the current fate of He Jiankey. Okay, so after this gene editing, the entire world is actually realized that gene editing is possible. That's a very important point here. So another claim comes from a person, Carl Dairo, from Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He is saying that the death will be optional. Aging can be cured in 2045. In 2045, he is saying, if the synthetic biology genome engineering is going this way, So we will not have any disease. Any disease can be cured at the genomic level. Thereby, the death is optional. A person if he chose, I don't want to die, he will not die. Only unless an accident can kill him, otherwise he will not die by natural way. And aging is treatable. There will be no aging. Always looks like a young boy. There is no aging at all. That's the way he climbed. But his claim also being reality, going to be reality. You will see the another project with another big project with Greg Winter, how to cheat death. So if you see, it is a 3 million project that is called Longevity Project. Human Longevity Project has already, it is going on with the Greg Winter. I'm going to explain what is with this project. So you can imagine how synthetic biology is taking move forward, how to cheat death. I don't know they are going to cheat death or not. We will see. We'll wait and watch. But what is happening with this project, I will share a few slides. See, if you see only a small fraction of what Greg Winter is saying. So Greg Winter is saying that only small fraction of the people have reached the life up to 90s or centurions. So he says that from this project, after this project, almost the population becomes centurions. Did you know, actually, already in the world, the 5 places called blue zones. Yes, I have no time, another 15 minutes only. I have to wind up. So the zones, if you see, the blue zones, the people are always have a centurion life. Okay? So the Greg Winter Longevity Mission wanted to create or wanted to develop some technologies, thereby the people or the person have always centurion life. How it is possible? What he is explaining, he is saying that right now, 40% of the males reach 50 won't make it to 74. You understand me? The male population, those who are reach the age of 50, they are not reaching the age of 74. Very similarly, 28% of the women, those who reach the age of 50, not reaching the age of 74. Means this statement clearly says that the male is always having a lower longevity when compared to female. Female is having a longevity is very high when compared to the males. Okay, means males are living males are having short lifespan. Females are having long lifespan. Okay, this is by nature. Okay, other way, what he is saying. The Greg Winter believes that the word healthy can be applied if we are able to identify a patient. See, they have designed the patients of 18 to 99 years of age. They applied these genomic technologies to detect pre-diabetic genes, oncogenes, all disease-causing genes in a genome which is not expressed, or which the person have this disease later age. They are able to identify these diseases, or they are able to predict these diseases in a childhood. Okay, one of the example, they are saying that one of the 18-year-old patients they are analyzing now, she is having oncogene. Okay, and her family and she is working with this human longevity project. So the Greg Winter says that when she is grow, then she have a cancer. That time Greg Winter have the solution. So he able to treat the cancer genomically. So thereby that patient she is part of this project will have a longevity survival. So another project, and not only this is a project, another commercial venture. If you go to this commercial venture, even if you Google it, 23andMe, just to Google it, if you pay $200, so they will be giving you ancestry services. Ancestry services means we usually say, no, I belong to this king family, queen family, all these things. Very good. You just give $200 and your 1 ml of blood samples, they will tell you belong to which family. So really, these services now the worldwide they're adopting. Many of the people are using this service because you know the growing problem: biological father, biological parents. Many people wanted to identify whether who is our biological parents. So that's ancestry services have been in place. Why I'm introducing this service? Because this played a big role in COVID time about the genome sequencing and analysis of the COVID genome and not only the human genomes. So now this service is going to have they expand this just like longevity project. They're going to if you give now they are giving ancestry. But while after due course of time, when we give a one number of blood samples or a DNA, they are able to say when we will have the cancer, when we have the diabetics, all disease in our life, they will tell us means well before we are getting the disease. Okay. So another dream project is going on, designer babies. So this maybe it is in the beginning stage, but I'm sure the human editing is already successful. Over a period of time, it is successful with designer babies. Why it is successful? I just simply explain a technology which is available now. See, you know very well about in vitro fertilization, IVF procedure. So previously, IVF procedure is very tedious, but now IVF is a localized technique. So here, in IVF procedure, we can select at embryo level. We need not go to the fetus level. You can select. It is the fetus is the genomically desired trait or not. The genomic desired genome is present or not. So thereby we cannot kill a embryo. We cannot kill a baby because it is unethical. But embryo level, you can select. Before you are transforming into a woman, at the laboratory level, at the in vitro level, you can select and dispose. You can dispose which is undesired fetus. Okay. So I'm another 10 minutes. I will explain about the role of synthetic biology in metagenomic bioprospecting. See, you can see the difference between genomics and metagenomics. Genomics I explained. See, if you go with a single cultured organism, extract the DNA, you sequence it, you assemble and annotate it, that is called genomics. In the case of if you take the population DNA, extract the DNA, sequence it, assemble and annotate this, that is called metagenomics. So the metagenomics undergoes two platforms, usually say that sequence-based and functional-based. So we started our work with metagenomics in 2010. So some of our functional metagenomic work. See, we usually run the metagenomic DNA. We usually call it high molecular weight DNA, HMW. The high molecular weight DNA cannot be resolved through ordinary gel electrophoresis. Otherwise called what is called DNA, so-called DNA gel electrophoresis. We cannot resolve it. So here, if you resolve the high molecular weight DNA, it is showing upward tailing, and it is stay at the first lane. So the first near to the lane means it is around 20 kb. It is not 20 kb. It is beyond that. So then we run this DNA through a pulse bead gel electrophoresis. Pulse bead gel electrophoresis is able to resolve the high molecular weight DNA. It is showing the high concentration of the DNA is around 40 kb. So we require the 40 kb for phosphate library preparation. So we resolve this 40 kb electroeluted. This area what we cut this gel in a larger gel and cut the gel and we electroeluted, and again we checked. We found that the particular region is actually 40 kb fragment. So the 40 kb fragment we usually say 40 kb insert. Then we did the end repairing. If you do some work with the genomic library preparation, you know better, end repairing and the further steps. After end repairing, we cloned it a FUCC1 FOSS vector. We create the library. The library looks like this one. This is a model image. It is showing almost the insert is 40 kb. So this is called metagenomic library. Library is ready. Library is nothing. We usually use the word whole genome shotgun cloning. Means you have to take the genome, splice into fragment. You have to clone all the fragment of the DNA. That is called whole genome shotgun cloning. Then we take the library. Library means the clones. The entire cloning, we screen the clones through robotic systems. Yes, see 1 lakh clone, you are unable to screen it in a single day or in a week time. So in a robotic system, we are able to screen it within a single day. 1 lakh clone we are able to screen. So we screened for many. This is about, I'm speaking about bioprospecting, proteases, glucosidases, amylases, lipases, lacases, silanase, pigment, L-asparginase. L-asparginase, you know better, is anti-cancer enzyme, antibiotics, and bioactive synthesis. Synthesis means not only direct molecules, also the pathways responsible for the secondary metabolites production, like PKS, polyketide synthesis, NRPS, etc. And this is one of our publications showing this metagenomic lipase. This is the one very interesting from a soil metagenomic library showing a peptide antibiotic. This is the library. So the library is showing positive, and the positive for the secretion of antibiotic. Then that particular clone was we transferred, and we created a subclonal library. The subclonal library is showing strong positive, strong antibiotic positive, antibiotic production. So this is the way we can use the metagenomic library for the continuous bioprospecting of bioactive molecules. But the problem is now only we require synthetic biology platform. So what is the problem in the metagenomic library? Why? Because now many people are not working with metagenomic libraries. Because it is a laborious, require lot of investment. Finally, it is a failure. Yes, many of these genes are not getting expressed in a heterologous system. So already it was one nature protocol was they demonstrated, that is SciGex. SciGex means substrate induced gene expression. So here we can provide the media with some catabolic induction. For example, amylase, when we are screening for amylase enzyme, we provide carbohydrates. When we are aiming to screen a lipase or lipase, we have to provide some lipid. So like when we are aiming for protease enzyme, we have to provide protein as the catabolic inducer. So that's the way they proposed, and they developed a technique called SciGex. And the SciGex was actually later it developed as a high throughput platform. So why it is high throughput? They provided, they cloned, the library was generated between a GFE protein along with a GFE. The cloning site was provided to GFE gene. So thereby the clones which is positive also getting, the green fluorescence glowing. So that positive clones were separated by FACS. That is fluorescent activated cell sorting mission. That were very good. But even then, this approach was not always successful. Very recently, it was it was not always successful. And the metagenomic projects are very well realized. The large scale global projects, 3 global projects. One is called Human Microbiome Project. Another one is called Greg Vente's Global Ocean Expedition Project. The third project is called Mammoth Genome Project. Now, the synthetic biology play an important role in Mammoth Genome Project. So this Mammoth Genome Project, you might have seen in ICS movies. This mammoth, this African elephant, not exist today. This African elephant not exist today. They wanted to bring back this elephant because the genome is available. You just remember the synthetic genome concept. What is that concept? Complete chemical synthesis assembly. That approach was applied to this Mammoth project. If it is successful, that will be the greatest breakthrough in synthetic biology. So the Mammoth will be bring back to the earth. That is possible only through a synthetic biology platform. The complete chemical synthesis, because it is not so easy. This project is undergoing on. We will see what will be happening. So one of the recent publications in Nature Chemical Biology, if you're interested, you read all these publications, these very, very interesting publications. It says that, see, I told you there are most of the metagenomic libraries are not successful. That is not expressing the gene. So what they are saying that, so if you, one of the approach I told you, SciGex. SciGex, we can clone the gene, we clone the gene near to the green fluorescent protein. Okay, thereby that is only indicator. If it is expressed, green fluorescent protein will be helping us to separate the positive clone. But the problem is always the expression. How we can achieve the expression? So what they are saying, if you design a genetic circuit, okay, a catabolic inducer, I told you, catabolic inducer not in the media, catabolic inducer in the gene construct itself, that clone itself. Thereby, we can successfully perform the expression. So this is the one of the latest development in synthetic biology. It is very important, synthetic biology and functional metagenomics. Because I remember functional metagenomics we did in 2010 to 15. Now we are not doing. Yes, it is a laborious and failure work. But now it is a new hope from the synthetic biology. We can able to restart the work with the synthetic biology design, synthetic biology genetic circuit, means the standard biological parts appropriately selected and put it near to the cloning site, thereby we can induce the gene expression. So the last another 2 minutes, this is like a story. So there are people are thought that there are some of the indication, will 2020 be the year of intelligent alien life? Now I wanted to explain what is the role of synthetic biology in alien life. So another 2-3 minutes I'll explain and finish it. Okay. So this is one of the very interesting aspects. People are working on it. Really alien is there or not? We will see quickly. First you should understand 3 theories. Then only you will understand really alien, who is alien. The first one is Darwin's theory of evolution. Say existing on the earth require always evolutionary future. Are you clear? The second one, Stephen Hawking theory of aliens. Stephen Hawking, you might have heard about it. He speaks about the extraterrestrial life will conquer the earth. Really, it is true. The third one is hollow genome theory of coexistence. So quickly, 2 minutes. The Darwin theory, you know better. I am skipping it. So the Darwin explains that it is not the strongest of the species to survive, nor the most responsible, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. Which what the point I wanted to say is, though anything we design, we create, and the Great the longevity project, whatever, it's okay, but it is responsible to change. Because the environment is highly polluting. The environment is so dangerous. It is a global warming. Many things are happening. Other side. So if you are not able to change, evolve to that environment, we will be dying. We don't have the longevity in our life. Okay, you just keep in mind. Second one, hollow genome theory of coexistence. Our previous understanding is that we have our genome, my life. No, now not that way. Now our recent understanding is that we evolve with by our own. We evolve with our symbiotic bacteria, which is surviving.
third round online જ લગભગ થશે કારણ કે
please. So we always evolve with we humans made up of 10 power 10 cells. Okay, our stomach is made up of 10 power 14 cells. Our stomach is having 10 power 14 cells of 10 power 14 microbial cells. We humans have 28,000 genes. Our stomach microbiome is having 1 lakh plus genes. So if we evolve with our 1 lakh plus genes and 28,000 genes, together is collectively called hollow genome. So a symbiont host genome collectively called hollow genome. When we evolve together, we will have a longevity life. So this I have a long lecture. I will speak somewhere other time. Okay, I'm going to end with Stephen Hawking statement. Stephen Hawking is saying that the advanced aliens could conquer the colonies of our planet, warns Stephen Hawking. He was survived with neural motor disease in 1940 to 2018. He was behind with many of the physics theories, modern theories. After Darwin, I can say, our time, Stephen Hawking is the strong, well-known theoretical scientist. So he predicts the advanced aliens could conquer the earth, thereby the earth have the end. Okay, that's good. That is Stephen Hawking view. So I am going to explain to you who is the alien based on synthetic biology. This I am skipping. See, I told you the entire life on the earth is made up of AGCT. Can we have a life other than AGCT? Yes. Already we have extended alphabet. So the AGCT is already expanded with other unnatural nucleotides. So if you create an unnatural nucleotide-based life, that is called alien. Are you clear? See, this is alien. If you create unnatural nucleotide and synthetic genome, complete chemical synthesis, assemble it, create a life, that is the time we are facing aliens on the earth. Okay? So get ready. So this is not, I'm saying like story, as you see, CDC already made synthetic Ebola virus. So the synthetic viruses are already available for actually this is for treatment purpose. Now we are facing COVID-19. That's the reason I'm speaking from the virtual mode of talk. But definitely we are getting ready to face the next level of viral attack. That will be a synthetic viral attack. Even nowadays, even COVID-19 itself, you know better, many people are having the doubt or many people realize that COVID-19 is an engineered virus. So even COVID-19 is engineered, then you can just imagine a complete synthetic virus and its attack on the earth. What will be? So those who are attending this lecture, you will be responsible to create some designs and antidote for the humanity going to face the synthetic virus attack. So this one I have a publication very recently. The zoonotic evolution of this virus is no problem, but human intervention in the evolution is the dangerous. So that if you're interested, you can read this article, which is recently published in Virus Research, Zoonotic Evolution and Implication of Microbiome in Viral Transfer and Infections. So I wish you all good luck. So if you are interested, if anybody interested in synthetic biology, get into this IBEC competitions, which is funded by DBT. DBT will fund 10 lakhs rupees for your idea. So thereby you can enter the synthetic biology field. So wish you all good luck. Thank you very much.